Hello my fellow comic book collectors. This is now part 2 of my series of Golden Age characters that really defined that generation. And what I'll be looking at in this video is really the top 10 list, my top 10 list. So this is not based on anyone else's opinion, this is my opinion, and take it with a grain of salt, because these are the characters that I think really defined that generation. And I'll give my reasons for why I felt that these characters were so significant to the Golden Age. And I'd like to hear your feedback. So before I make this list, I want you to leave your feedback below. What characters you feel were the top 10 from the Golden Age? And do you agree with my list? So with that being said, let's get into the top 10 list. So very first one was a character that made his first appearance in a Batman #1. This character is not Batman, it's not Robin, it is the Joker. Now the Joker is a character that I really do feel, he's the only bad guy on this list, but he is a character that I really do feel really changed villains in general. In his origin story, not his origin story, but in his first story in Batman #1, the Joker literally killed people with a smile. Like, he would make them have like this big smile across their face, and it was like a brutal kind of evil character. The Joker. He was ruthless. He would, he didn't hold his punches. He was somebody that was equal to a Batman. He was somebody that was not just some wimpy little bad guy. He was somebody that could hold his own. Up till then, really the Joker, most bad guys were just typical people. Like, they were mobsters. They had, there were a few kind of super bad guys, but really the Joker kind of changed the way villains were done. He was so bad. He was a mobster in a way, but he was also somebody that had like cool things that he could use. He could fight. He had like gas that he would use. He had all these tricks that he would use against Batman to really foil Batman a lot of the time. And he wasn't somebody that Batman could take lightly. He was somebody that was very formidable. And the Joker is one of those characters that I feel has really endured over the years and has even grown to be maybe almost as loved as Batman. He is just one of those characters that is, you love to hate him, I guess. So he's just a brilliant character. I really felt kind of defined that change in bad guys. So I'm a big fan of the Joker, and I felt like he deserved to be on this top 10 list. So the Joker is number 10 on my top 10 list. My only bad guy. So with that said, the next one on my list is one that made his first appearance in Pep Comics number 22. And it's kind of an interesting story because this character was very different than most of the other characters. So if you look at like More Fun Comics or Detective Comics or many of these other comic books, they usually started out with something other than superheroes. Pep Comics started out with superheroes. So it's kind of weird. They started out with superheroes, but then this character came along and it changed Pep Comics altogether. So this character was Archie. So Archie made his first appearance in Pep Comics. And up till then, Pep Comics was all about superheroes. And because Archie was kind of like this all-American boy, he really changed comics in a way. Like, all of a sudden, like, humor and these kind of all-American boy stories and the typical like Betty and Veronica love triangle really kind of defined a new era of comics. it really was an interesting phenomena that Archie was. And if you look at the print runs of Archie, we're talking millions of comics that were being printed. So just the sheer volume of comics that were being produced makes this one definitely a character that should be on the top 10 list. And he is a character that has endured all these years. He's always been sort of relevant to every generation. And that's really kind of one of the, awesome things about Archie. That he has remained relevant. They're still making TV series using Archie characters. And, if you think about it, he's really, tied to that early 40s, 50s kind of genre, but at the same time, he's relevant today. So it's kind of interesting that, he's kind of the opposite sort of arc of all these other comic book stories where it was like some like funnies related comic, and then all of a sudden became action superhero. Well, his was the other way around. So I really am a big fan of Archie. I grew up reading, because my parents wouldn't let me read superhero comics. They let me read Archies and Donald Duck and all those kind of comics. So Archie is definitely a comic that deserves to be on this list, and a character that deserves to be on this list. So the next on my list is All-American Comics number 16, who introduced the Green Lantern. Now, the original Green Lantern, what's his name? Al Garrick? No, sorry. Sorry. I messed up his name for some reason. Alan Scott. My name's Alan too, so it's kind of funny. And that's not why he's on the list, but Alan Scott, his origin story is kind of interesting. Very different than the modern version of the Green Lantern, where we see the Green Lantern and the Green Lantern Corps, and we see it as being kind of more of an extraterrestrial thing, and there's just all these Green Lanterns out there. The original story is kind of interesting. Originally, it was like sort of like this weird meteor that hit China, and there was like this lamp that was created, and that lamp got passed down to somebody that was in like an insane asylum in America. And when he basically reforged the lamp into a lantern, and then the lantern basically spoke to him and made him have these superpowers, where he would be kind of normal again. And then, as fate would have it, the lantern got passed to Alan Scott. So I'm not sure how it got passed down to him, but it did. And so Alan Scott, basically, he should have died, actually. He was in a situation where there was a train accident, and the only one that survived was Alan Scott, and because he was next to this Green Lantern. And then the Green Lantern basically gave him life and gave him these superpowers, powers based on his will. And the lantern spoke to him saying, you have to make a ring, that he basically could carry that willpower, that power from the lantern, with him wherever he went by having that ring. Now, that component, that ring component, where he basically took the ring from a little piece of the Green Lantern, that ring component really struck with kids' minds, imaginations. So kids back in the 40s, they would be, running around with like ring on their finger and acting like they were, had this, the powers of the Green Lantern. He was a character that really got into that whole generation's mind, and imagination and creativity. And that's one of the things that makes this such an enduring character, that really that's the power of the Green Lantern, that you can use your willpower to basically imagine anything and that will manifest. And that's the kind of cool part of the Green Lantern. So Green Lantern made his first appearance in All-American Comics number 16 from 1940. And he is, to me, one of the top, he's number 8 on my list of characters from the Golden Age. So next on my list of characters from the Golden Age is made his first appearance in Flash Comics number 1. Obviously, it is the Flash. The Flash, Jay Garrett. See, I was getting the two names mixed up. Jay Garrett was, this guy with super speed. And, he's one of those characters that has gone up against Superman in terms of testing his speed. And he is one of those characters that has had many iterations. But this was his first iteration, where he had that sort of helmet on his head with the little wings. It's kind of a silly, costume. You can see it. But he's one of those characters that is kind of cool because he relies on his speed and what he can do with that speed. He could create, wind, almost like little cyclones or something like that with his speed. He could, he could get to things really quickly. He could do a lot with just the power of speed. So, really great character from the Golden Age. And he made his first appearance in Flash Comics number 1 from 1940. So one of those characters that will potentially be on lists in my future lists, and I'll probably get more into his story later in future videos because he's just such a great character. Okay, next on my list, once I let my dog stop barking, is one that should be maybe higher up on the list. He's number 6 on my list, is Captain Marvel. Now, Captain Marvel, at the time, in the Golden Age, he actually sold so many copies that he actually outsold Superman at the time. However, the reason he's lower down on my list is not because he wasn't important to the Golden Age, but because he just didn't endure. He didn't have that longevity, where he basically disappeared after the Golden Age and really didn't reappear until the 70s. He sort of went through about 20 years where he was just absent. So because of that, I kind of put him lower on the list, but he really is a major character from the Golden Age that really should be recognized for his significance. Because the great thing about Captain Marvel was his origin. His origin is a story where it's a boy who gets the ability of Superman, basically. Captain Marvel's kind of a ripoff of Superman, so, but yeah, kind of gets this Superman powers because of his virtue of being a good person, a pure mind and all this kind of thing. So he's kind of that perfect role model for what kids could sort of emulate. That maybe if I was if I'm a really, really good kid, I can become like Captain Marvel, and I'll be chosen to get that power. And so Captain Marvel would say the word Shazam, and then he would be a normal boy at one point, and then he would say Shazam, and he would transform into Captain Marvel and have all these superpowers. So he's one of those characters that really, really engaged with kids, and a lot of kids would emulate being Captain Marvel, and he was a very, very popular comic character. And he made his first appearance in Whiz Comics from 1940. So just a major, major character. So the next one on my list is another major character from the Golden Age, and it's Captain America. And Captain America is one of those characters that really was spawned out of the war effort. He's a Jack Kirby, Joe Simon character, and he was a character that really wanted to sort of encourage Americans to kind of have that pride in their country and to really join into the war effort. Okay, so so his appearance is from Captain America Comics #1 from 1941. This is just before America was getting into the war with Germany, and it's one of those ones where it really it really inspired a lot of people. Like, a lot of these comics were designed to raise money for the war effort. They would have like ads for the war bonds, and they would have things that were basically in them to encourage people to join the war effort. So no better way to do that than having Captain America punching Hitler on the cover. It's just, that almost sums up his origin right there. That's really what this is all about, that he is somebody that is going up against the Nazis, and America is going up against the Nazis. What a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these early comics, DC and Marvel, were started by Jewish writers. So if you look at Superman, he was actually created by 2 Jewish creators. And they were really, afraid of what was going on in Germany. That, with Hitler, with the rise of anti-Semitism. So this was their response to that, really, to create a character that was very opposite of that. The American values of freedom, liberty, and all these things embodied into this one character. So Captain America, very, very important character from the Golden Age, and really that wartime Golden Age era. So very important character, super important to comic history. So he's number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list is one of my favorite characters, who made her first appearance in All-Star Comics #8 from 1941. She's the only woman on this list too, so a bit sexist, I guess, but it is Wonder Woman. Now, Wonder Woman is, to me, a very important character for comic history. Not only does she represent women in comics, and a character that sort of went across gender lines. Both boys and girls loved Wonder Woman. She was kind of a very popular character. She was a character that really showed women that they could be powerful and awesome too. And that was something that was kind of interesting at the time. I mean, there were other characters that had similar, she wasn't the first. There was Sheena, who was earlier than her by 2 years, that was not a superhero, but a woman that was powerful and awesome as well. So she's not the first, but Wonder Woman is kind of that quintessential female superhero that young girls can kind of, admire and want to live up to. That she's like heroic, and she's able to do all these wonderful things, and she has her lasso of truth. She has her boyfriend too. There's sort of that love interest element to her stories, and she's her writer. Basically, her creator. Moulton basically saw her as sort of a way to kind of bring in feminist ideas. This is early feminism, not kind of like the modern feminist that we have now, which is maybe a bit toxic, but she was like an early empowered woman, and a bit of a free thinker, and very different than the way women were portrayed before her. So Wonder Woman, definitely one of those characters that has not only endured over all these years, but is a character that definitely should be on this list and is pretty high on my list because she's one of my favorite characters. So that is number 4 on my list. So next on my list is the number 3 on my list. So Wonder Woman number 4. This character is number 3 on the list. I actually was kind of debating about whether or not to even put this character on the list, and yet I chose to put this character very high up on the list instead. I really do love Wonder Woman, and it was kind of a struggle for me to put this character above Wonder Woman. But the reason I put this character above Wonder Woman is the significance of who he is. And this is Robin, who made his first appearance in Detective Comics from 1941. So Detective Comics number 38, I should say. Sorry, and I should say from 1940. What am I saying? April 1940. So Robin is one of those characters that deserves to be high on this list, mainly because he is that typical sidekick. He represents all the sidekicks that maybe should have been mentioned on this list. He is one of those characters that you almost think, whenever you think Batman, you think Robin. He is part of the Batman legacy. He is part of that whole generation of comics. And he's that idea that maybe I can't be the super, be part of the superhero team, that kind of idea. I think that's why they kind of created Robin as a character, to give people that hope that they could be part of maybe some superhero team, give young boys that idea that they could be part of a superhero team. So the whole idea of the sidekick really was spawned out of Robin, and he's really kind of a major character in that respect. There were other sidekicks before Robin, but they were never heroic in the way, like when I say heroic, I mean having powers or having the situation where they were involved in the fighting. There were sort of secondary characters that were just sort of there that would help the main good guy, but not necessarily be as in the fray with that superhero. So Robin was one of those characters that he got involved in the action. He was part of the action, and that was very different. He was unusual in that respect. So he's definitely a character that is a very interesting character. And I always saw Robin and the Batman situation where he's kind of as a sort of that model of like the prodigy, where he could be sort of groomed and made into a superhero just like Batman. So it's like kind of that element to Batman that I liked, that there was this character that could be groomed and potentially become another equally powerful character as Superman, as Batman. So yeah, so that is why Robin is number 3 on my list, and he is a great character from 1940. Next on my list is Batman. So I couldn't have Robin without Batman, right? I mean, obviously Batman is more significant than Robin. Batman was a very interesting superhero because he didn't have superpowers. And that is something that's really interesting about Batman, because of the fact that he was just some rich man that could, had all these cool gadgets that allowed him to be a crime fighter. And Batman, he made his first appearance in Detective Comics number 27 in May of 1939. And he was one of those characters that was one of the earliest superheroes. He was kind of one of those characters that really inspired a whole generation of comics. He was as big as Superman in terms of his impact on comic history. The interesting thing with Batman from the Golden Age till the modern age is that his story has always been very consistent in terms of who he is. He is a crime fighter. He is somebody who, from a young age, had a situation where his parents were killed, making him an orphan, a very wealthy orphan, but still an orphan. And he wanted to be that person that really responded to criminal activity. And, he made it his life's work to basically fight crime. And that whole story is very appealing in many ways, and it has endured. And it seems always relevant, even to the modern age, even though this comic really is from 80 years ago, yet it still is as relevant today, and probably will always be relevant. And that's what makes Batman such a great character. He's just one of those characters that has gone through many changes, but there's that sort of consistent theme to him that has made him a very appealing character. And that's why he's number 2 on my list. So the last character on my list is going to be Superman. It's one of those battles that you struggle with. Who should be number 1? Should it be Batman or Superman? Well, I put Superman number 1 because of the fact that Superman is the first major superhero. There was actually the Phantom that came before Superman, but Superman is really what popularized superheroes in the Golden Age. And he's a character that has a bit of a Canadian origin. Joe Shuster was Canadian, so he moved to the U.S., but and I'm Canadian, so I always have to kind of support my own. Action Comics number 1 from June 1938. The first appearance of Superman, and Superman is, to me, the number 1 character from the Golden Age. He is a character that has had that sort of long history. The one thing that I would say about Superman, and this has been a challenge with such a character, is Superman is one of these perfect people, okay? He's unlike any other character in that respect. He's completely invincible. He's super strong, super fast. He's basically bulletproof. He can do all these things, and in a way that kind of makes him flawed. I know it sounds weird, but he's flawed in the respect that there is no sense of peril. With other characters, like with Batman, who was number 2 on my list, he could get shot, he could get injured, he could get hurt. Whereas Superman really doesn't have that. And to maintain a character that is kind of overpowered like Superman and make stories year after year is really challenging. And the interesting thing about Superman, unlike a lot of the other characters, is when, and this was actually mentioned in, Kill Bill. The interesting thing about Superman is all the other characters, they put on their suit, right? They put on, like Batman, he puts on the bat suit and he becomes Batman. Well, with Superman, it's the opposite. Generally, he pretends to be Clark Kent. He just pretends to be a regular person. And it's when he takes off his Clark Kent persona, removes the glasses, removes the clothing, that he becomes Superman. So he is always Superman, but he's generally hiding himself. Even with Captain Marvel, it's always their normal self, and then they become the hero. Well, it's the opposite with Superman. He's that weird situation where he is always Superman, but he has to pretend to be much weaker than he really is. He has to pretend to be not such a major, powerful character. And that's what kind of creates this very interesting dynamic with Superman, that he has to play these two worlds, where much of the story, which makes Superman very interesting, is the fact that he has this secret identity, and that secret identity has such a major impact in the way he is portrayed as a character in comics, and how he really associates with normal people. It sort of grounds him that he has this secret identity. If it wasn't for that, he'd basically be a god. He'd go around doing whatever he wants. But having Clark Kent as part of his persona has always grounded him to the rest of us. And that's what makes Superman such an amazing character, that he has all these complexities as well. Even though, as I said, he is a character that is perfect. He's really indestructible. So with all that said, Superman is #1 on my list of the most impactful Golden Age characters that has really endured over these years, and I feel that deserves to be #1 on the list. Now, with all that being said, with all my list of top 10, I'd like to hear your feedback. Which characters do you feel should have made this list? Did I miss anyone? And maybe, would you agree with my order? Would you reorder it some other way? Please leave your comments below, and I'd love to hear that feedback. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, this is the first era that I looked at, which is the Golden Age. I will be looking at the Silver Age and the characters that came out of that and define that generation. And I'll be looking at the Bronze and Copper and Modern Age. So stay tuned for those videos. Those will be happening later. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye for now.